Before we drift into tonight's tale of the philosophy of Jake the dog, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. When we think of adventure time, our minds often drift first to Finn, the human boy who longs for quests and meaning. But beside him, padding along with an easy smile and a slow wag of the tail, is Jake the dog. Jake is no ordinary companion. He is a shape-shifting, magical being, capable of stretching into towering giants or curling into tiny pocket-sized creatures. Yet for all his strange powers, what defines him most is his laid-back heart. Jake is, in many ways, a philosopher hiding in plain sight. He does not lecture. He does not write his thoughts in books or carve them in stone. Instead, he lives them, embodying a worldview through the calm way he carries them. While others around him rush, panic, or demand answers, Jake has a way of leaning back, taking a bite of a sandwich, and seeing things with a clearer lens. His philosophy is lived through ease. Picture him lying in the grass outside the tree fort, the sun warming his golden fur, one leg casually crossed over the other. Finn might be pacing nearby, eager to leap into some wild new adventure. But Jake's words are often the gentle tether that keeps his friend grounded. Sometimes it is advice delivered with surprising depth, and other times it is simply the reminder that rest itself is a kind of wisdom. This is the first thread of Jake's philosophy, the belief that life does not always need to be forced. He embodies a kind of surrender, not to defeat, but to flow. Where Finn sees problems to be solved, Jake often sees moments to be lived through, trusting that things will turn out the way they are meant to. His body itself becomes a symbol of this outlook. Just as he bends and stretches to fit whatever the situation requires, so too does his mind shape itself to the rhythms of the world around him. It can be tempting to dismiss Jake as lazy. After all, he is often shown napping or eating piles of pancakes or choosing comfort over urgency. But beneath that image lies a different kind of strength, the courage to slow down in a world that constantly demands action. In this way, Jake reminds us of an ancient truth. Sometimes the wisest step is no step at all. Think of the countless times Finn has charged headlong into battle or puzzle, his heroic heart burning for resolution. Jake, in contrast, watches with an amused grin, only stepping in when the moment truly calls for it. His restraint is a kind of wisdom. He teaches that not every fight needs fighting. Not every riddle needs solving right away. Some things unravel naturally when given time, like a tangled knot that loosens not through force but patience. There is a tenderness in this philosophy, one that feels especially soothing when we sit with it at night. Jake's life is not about conquering the world, but enjoying it. He finds joy in breakfast, in playing music, in the quiet bonds of friendship. He reminds Finn, and by extension us, that adventure is not measured only in dragons slain or kingdoms saved, but also in laughter, in naps beneath the sky, in moments of silliness that linger longer than victory. This gentle worldview becomes clearer when we look at how Jake interacts with others. He does not rush them or demand that they move at his pace. Instead, he adapts, flowing around their energy with calm acceptance. Even in moments of danger, when shadows creep and monsters roar, Jake's first instinct is often a shrug and a quip. He does not deny the danger. He refuses to let fear rule him. This ease of spirit becomes a balm to those around him, softening the edges of chaos with humor and warmth. What makes this so special is that Jake's wisdom is never prideful. He does not claim to know more than others, nor does he elevate himself as a teacher. His philosophy is more like a campfire glow, radiating outward quietly, guiding without insistence. Those who sit near him simply feel its warmth, often without realizing it until later. In many cultures, the sage is imagined as a solemn figure, cloaked in robes, eyes closed in meditation. But Jake shows us another kind of sagehood, one dressed in casual jokes, stretchy antics, and a love of good food. It is wisdom disguised as play, depth hidden in laughter. This disguise is not deception, but an invitation. Jake shows us that philosophy need not be lofty or unreachable. It can live in ordinary joys, in small choices, in the very act of taking things lightly. As we follow Jake through the land of Ooo, his philosophy begins to reveal itself not as a rigid system, but as a living way of being. It is easygoing, yet not careless. It is playful, yet not shallow. His whole life is a reminder that wisdom and silliness are not opposites, but companions, like Finn and Jake themselves. And just as he stretches his body into impossible shapes, Jake stretches the meaning of what it means to be wise. There is a story-like rhythm to this outlook. He lives as if each day is part of a tale worth enjoying, even if the details are messy. By choosing ease, he makes room for others to breathe, to feel safe, to laugh. His presence itself becomes a philosophy, one that tells us, do not rush, do not strain, do not worry too much about the future. Be here now, with a sandwich in hand, with the sun on your face, with the joy of existing in this moment. And perhaps that is why Jake is not only Finn's brother and companion, but also his guide, subtle ways. He does not lead with orders, but with presence. He does not push Finn to be more than he is, but gently reminds him that being himself is enough. This, too, is part of the easygoing sage, to teach not through instruction, but through example. Jake's wisdom also shows in the way he treats conflict. Where most heroes prepare themselves with armor and sharpened blades, Jake often approaches trouble with humor. His jokes are not meant to belittle danger, but to soften its grip. When enemies tower or shadows loom, his laughter works like a lantern in the dark, reminding everyone that fear is not the only response. In those moments, we can see how Jake views the world, not as a battlefield to be conquered, but as a strange dream to be navigated with calmness and play. This is why Finn and Jake make such a balanced pair. Finn, brimming with energy and righteousness, charges forward. Jake, grounded in his relaxed outlook, holds the reins loosely, slowing the gallop when it risks becoming reckless. One might imagine Finn as the flame and Jake as the steady log that lets the fire burn without consuming itself too quickly. The balance between them is not always perfect, but that imperfection is part of the magic. Finn grows from Jake's ease, and Jake grows from Finn's passion. Together, they embody two halves of a greater whole. There are moments in the series when Jake's laid-back nature is misunderstood, even by Finn. At times, Finn becomes frustrated, seeing Jake's refusal to panic as laziness or lack of care. Yet in those very moments, Jake reveals his truest strength. He knows that rushing into every storm only makes it worse. His calmness allows him to see angles others miss, solutions hidden behind the noise. Where Finn sees a locked door, Jake might notice a window already open. His easy manner is not ignorance, but awareness tuned to a quieter frequency. Take, for example, the way Jake handles danger with simple, almost absurd choices. He might stretch into a shield or turn himself into a boat, or even just lie still and wait. Each action reminds us that wisdom is not always about clever words or grand plans. Sometimes it is about pausing, listening, and trusting that the moment will guide us toward the right shape, the right action. In this way, Jake's stretchy powers are not just magical abilities, but symbols of his flexible mind. He reminds us that life asks us to bend, not break. As we drift deeper into his philosophy, it becomes clear that Jake's calmness is not passive. It is active acceptance. He chooses to meet life without the armor of constant worry. He allows things to happen, knowing that struggle often feeds on itself. There is something ancient in this way of being, as if Jake carries within him the voice of sages, who long ago whispered that life is best lived in harmony, not in resistance. For the listener lying in bed, perhaps with the weight of the day still lingering, Jake's philosophy feels like a gentle breath. It says, you don't need to fight every thought, every worry, every unfinished task. Let them rest for now. Let them drift as clouds across your sky. In the same way Jake sprawls across the couch without apology, we too can learn to give ourselves permission to simply be. And yet Jake is no stranger to action. When the moment truly demands it, when Finn's life is at stake, or when Ooo itself trembles, Jake does not hesitate. He rises, stretches into his most powerful forms, and protects what he loves. His philosophy of ease does not mean neglecting responsibility. Instead, it is a reminder that Not every moment requires our full strength, so that when the critical moments come, we have energy and clarity to give. This rhythm of rest and response is a wisdom many overlook. Another layer of Jake's philosophy is how he sees joy in the simplest of things. Pancakes, playing the viola, lazing on a sunny afternoon. To others, these might seem trivial, but Jake elevates them into the sacred. By cherishing the ordinary, he shows that happiness is not hidden in distant quests, but in the small pleasures that surround us daily. His ease is a kind of gratitude, a quiet appreciation for the gift of being alive in this strange and magical world. We might also notice how Jake's voice carries this philosophy. His speech is slow, relaxed, often punctuated with a chuckle. He rarely raises his tone even in moments of danger. Listening to him, one feels soothed, as if his very way of speaking is an invitation to relax. This, too, is part of his role as the easygoing sage. Wisdom not only in ideas, but in tone, in presence, and how he inhabits the space around him. Finn, young and restless, sometimes resists this calmness, but over time he learns from it. The boy who once leapt at every chance for action begins to find value in stillness. Jake's philosophy plants seeds in Finn and in us as viewers that wisdom is not about racing faster, but about knowing when to pause. In that pause, life reveals itself. As we reflect on Jake's role in the great tapestry of Adventure Time, we begin to see him not only as comic relief or loyal sidekick, but as a figure who carries deep symbolic weight. He is the embodiment of relaxation as a virtue, of laughter as a shield, of presence as a guide. The easygoing sage, teaching not with scrolls or lectures, but with pancakes, naps, and a stretch of the imagination. And so when we think of Jake, it is worth remembering that his philosophy is not loud. It does not announce it. It is quiet, like the hum of a lullaby, like the glow of a campfire. It drifts into us slowly, often unnoticed, until we find ourselves smiling more easily, breathing more deeply, and remembering that life, at its core, is meant to be lived with ease. Jake's approach to life also reveals something rare. He trusts. He trusts Finn to make choices, even reckless. He trusts the universe to sort itself out, even when things seem uncertain. This trust is not naive, but intentional. By allowing space for things to unfold, Jake models a confidence in the flow of life itself. He is not blinded by optimism, but steadied by faith that not every knot must be untangled at once, that not every riddle needs solving on the first try. Consider the many adventures where Finn charges forward and Jake follows with a calm word or small adjustment that prevents disaster. Sometimes Jake even lets Finn stumble, knowing that the stumble itself will teach more than 1,000 warnings. This is another piece of his philosophy, to guide without control. In a world filled with rules, crowns, and cosmic forces, Jake's refusal to control others feels revolutionary. His wisdom whispers that real growth happens not through chains, but through freedom. And yet Jake himself is not without flaws. His laziness can sometimes slide into avoidance, his easygoing nature into irresponsibility. There are times when his choice to nap or eat leads Finn to frustration or even danger. These moments remind us that every philosophy, even one rooted in calmness, carries shadows. But in these shadows lies another lesson. Wisdom does not mean perfection. Jake's philosophy is not about being flawless, but about accepting imperfection as part of the flow. His missteps are as much a part of his teaching as his successes. This duality makes him deeply human, despite being a magical dog. His philosophy is not unreachable or divine, but ordinary and relatable. It tells us that we do not need to live without mistakes in order to live wisely. We can falter, laugh at ourselves, and carry on with renewed ease. Jake's presence teaches us to forgive ourselves as readily as he forgives others. In a way, this may be his greatest wisdom of all, that life is not about being unbroken, but about bending gracefully when the winds blow. One can sense the echoes of old philosophies in Jake's worldview. In his ease, there is Taoism, with its trust in the natural flow. In his humor, there is Zen, with its paradoxes and laughter in the face of seriousness. In his loyalty to Finn, there is a reminder of old epic companions, the guides and friends who steadied heroes through trial. Yet Jake carries all of these in his own unique, playful form. He does not lecture on Tao or Zen. He does not declare himself a sage. He simply lives these truths in the way he naps, jokes, stretches, and loves. When we think of a sage, we might picture someone sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop, eyes closed in silence. But Jake shows us that sagehood can also be sprawled on the couch, crumbs on your shirt, laughing at a silly pun. His philosophy is accessible, even childlike. That is what makes it powerful. It is not locked behind temples or scrolls. It is in the everyday, waiting for us to notice it. Even the way Jake uses his powers carries philosophical weight. His shape-shifting is not only a tool for adventure, but a metaphor for adaptability. Where others might struggle against the rigid walls of identity, Jake flows easily from form to form. He becomes what is needed in the moment, whether that is a shield, a parachute, or a gentle pillow for his friend. His body mirrors his mind, free, fluid, unafraid of change. He shows us that wisdom is not in clinging to one fixed form, but in embracing transformation. This adaptability also speaks to how Jake views the world's chaos. In Ooo, danger is never far away. From candy zombies to cosmic entities, the land is unpredictable and strange. Finn meets this chaos with youthful fire. Jake meets it with calm curiosity. To him, the chaos is not something to be conquered, but something to dance with. He bends to, stretches around it, laughs with. By embodying flexibility, he shows that resilience is not about unyielding strength, but about softness that endures. As the easygoing sage, Jake's greatest gift may be the way he normalizes rest. In a world of constant battles and quests, he reminds Finn and us that rest is not weakness. Rest is sacred. When Jake stretches out under the stars or curls up on the floor after a long day, he teaches us that the body and spirit need quiet as much as they need action. This philosophy feels especially soothing for those of us listening in the dark of night. It is a reminder that slowing down is part of the adventure, not separate. Brownie, even Jake's love of food carries meaning. His endless appetite might seem comical, but it is also symbolic of a philosophy that celebrates the simple pleasures of existence. Pancakes, own sandwiches, and bacon pancakes are not distractions from life, but part of its sweetness. Jake invites us to savor what is right before us, to treat each meal as a small festival. His appetite is a joyful protest against the idea that meaning must always be found in struggle. Sometimes meaning is in the taste of syrup on a warm pancake. In the quiet rhythm of Jake's days, we can see a blueprint for living with gentleness. He is not trying to impress anyone, nor does he seek grand recognition. His philosophy rests in being present, loving those around him, and finding delight in the small. This quiet wisdom often goes unnoticed, hidden beneath jokes and naps. But it is as steady as the heartbeat of Ooo itself. As Finn's adventures grow more complex, Jake's role as a grounding presence becomes clearer. Without him, Finn might burn himself out chasing every battle. With him, Finn learns to breathe, to wait, to laugh. Jake does not overshadow Finn's heroism. He balances. The easygoing sage supports the restless knight, showing that true strength lies not only in charging forward, but also in knowing when to pause. And perhaps this is why so many viewers find themselves drawn to Jake's philosophy. It feels achievable. It whispers that we too can live with more ease, more humor, more trust. It does not demand that we renounce the world or conquer our flaws. It asks only that we breathe, laugh, and stretch into the shape life calls for in each moment. In many ways, Jake is a mirror. He reflects back to those around him the truth they most need, but in a softer shape. For Finn, he reflects patience and balance. For Lady Rainicorn, he reflects devotion and silliness. For his pups, he reflects a kind of loose, unstructured love that allows them to find their own path. His philosophy is not about molding others into his image, but about letting them discover their own shapes, just as he stretches into his. This mirror-like quality makes him not only a companion, but also a quiet guide, always reminding us that wisdom is not about control, but about acceptance. We can also see Jake's philosophy in how he holds space for contradiction. He can be both a warrior and a napper, a father and a wanderer. deeply loyal and occasionally irresponsible. Rather than choose between these identities, Jake lets them coexist. He embodies the idea that we are all made of contradictions and that this need not be a source of shame. By simply being himself with all his flaws and charms, Jake shows that wholeness comes not from perfection, but from embracing the full spectrum of who we are. This is part of why Jake feels timeless. He may live in the post-apocalyptic strangeness of Ooo, but his lessons reach far beyond it. In his laughter, we hear echoes of ancient wisdom traditions. In his naps, we sense the teachings of those who remind us to value stillness. In his loyalty to Finn, we see the archetype of the faithful friend, a role found in myths across countless cultures. And yet, Jake never feels weighed down by these echoes. He wears his wisdom lightly, almost playfully, as though teaching us that even the deepest truths can be carried with a smile. Another powerful aspect of Jake's philosophy is the way he handles fear. While Finn often confronts fear head-on, sometimes with trembling hands but unyielding resolve, Jake diffuses fear by softening. He cracks jokes in the dark, hums a tune in the face of monsters, stretches himself into shapes that turn terror into comedy. This approach reminds us that fear itself can be reshaped. It is not always a wall to be climbed. Sometimes it is a shadow that disappears when lightheartedness touches it. By showing us another way to meet fear, Jake teaches us that courage is not always about steel and fire. Sometimes it is about laughter. His relationship with time also carries a gentle lesson. While Finn often worries about destiny, quests, and the weight of the future, Jake drifts comfortably in the present. He does not dismiss the future, but he refuses to let it steal from the now. This presence is part of what makes him such a soothing figure. Around Jake, time seems to slow, as though the rushing river of life pauses long enough to notice the ripples on its surface. His philosophy encourages us to do the same, to linger, to savor, to realize that the present moment is always enough. Of course, Jake's philosophy has limits. There are times when his ease frustrates others, when his refusal to worry seems careless, when his detachment risks becoming neglect. Yet even in those moments, the world around him bends back toward balance. Finn pushes forward, Jake holds back, and somewhere between the two lies the right path. Their bond teaches that no single philosophy is complete in isolation. Jake's easygoing nature becomes most powerful when balanced with Finn's drive. Together, they create harmony, a harmony that neither could fully embody alone. For those listening tonight, perhaps lying in bed with eyes slowly closing, Jake's lessons feel like a lullaby. They ask nothing of us except to rest, to breathe, to allow ourselves to exist without judgment for a while. In his way, Jake becomes the embodiment of what many of us long for at the end of the day: comfort, acceptance, and the permission to let go. His philosophy does not demand that we change the world before sleep, only that we find ease within ourselves. There is also something quietly cosmic in Jake's nature. His powers, strange and limitless, hint at mysteries greater than even he seems to understand. And yet, rather than obsess over their meaning, Jake accepts them as part of who he is. This acceptance itself is a kind of cosmic wisdom. He does not need to grasp every mystery in order to live well. He shows us that sometimes it is enough simply to be, to stretch into whatever form life asks of, without overthinking its purpose. This cosmic nonchalance is strangely profound. It suggests that perhaps the greatest secret of the universe is not complexity, but simplicity. If Jake's ease marks him as a sage, then his freedom reveals the heart of his philosophy. For Jake, freedom is not only about where his paws wander, but also about how his mind and spirit flow. He is a creature who cannot be caged, not because he fights against walls, because he simply stretches around them. His life is a study in adaptability, a lesson in how to remain true to oneself while slipping gently past every barrier. When we watch Jake shift his form, bending from giant to tiny, from boat to parachute, it is easy to see this as a simple gag or magical trick. But beneath the humor, his stretching body holds deep meaning. His powers mirror his spirit. Just as his limbs extend beyond their limits, so too does his sense of self expand beyond ordinary boundaries. He refuses to be pinned to one role or one identity. Warrior, friend, father, wanderer. Jake is all of these, but never trapped by any. His philosophy of freedom is lived in every ripple of his golden body. This freedom is not loud. It does not shout for rebellion. Instead, it hums softly, like the sound of leaves moving in the breeze. Jake does not fight against rules out of anger. He simply chooses not to be confined by them. Think of the many times Finn insists on the right way to handle a quest, while Jake, lounging with half-closed eyes, suggests an alternative that seems careless but turns out wise. He is not ignoring responsibility. He is reminding Finn and us that freedom means seeing more than one path forward. In many ways, Jake's approach resembles the ancient teachings that speak of water. Water never breaks through stone by force. It flows around, over, and through, reshaping the hardest rock with patience. Jake, too, embodies his philosophy. When life sets obstacles in his way, he does not always strike them head-on. He flows around them, stretches above them, or shrinks beneath them, reminding us that freedom is often found not in resistance, but in adaptation. This adaptability becomes most striking in contrast to Finn's rigidity. Finn longs for code, for rules of heroism, for a sense of what is right and wrong. He looks at the world and wants it to make sense, to be ordered, to fit within his ideal. Jake, in his gentle way, teaches Finn that life is messier, more fluid. Right and wrong are not always clear, and sometimes freedom means accepting the ambiguity rather than forcing a tidy answer. The tension between them creates not only conflict but growth. Finn learns to loosen his grip, and Jake shows us the gift of flowing rather than clenching. Freedom for Jake is also the freedom to enjoy life. He does not confine himself with guilt or endless striving. He eats when he is hungry, sleeps when he is tired, plays music when the mood strikes him. These choices may appear simple, but they embody a philosophy that resists the rigid demands of a world obsessed with constant productivity. Jake's way of living whispers that true freedom is not about doing more, but about choosing what feels aligned in each moment. And yet, Jake's freedom is not selfish. He does not abandon Finn or Lady Rainicorn or his pups in pursuit of his own ease. Instead, his freedom is expansive, making room for those he loves. By refusing to chain himself to strict expectations, he teaches them, too, that they need not live within narrow boxes. His philosophy becomes contagious. Around Jake, others feel freer, lighter, more willing to bend instead of break. There is also a cosmic thread in Jake's freedom. His powers do not seem to follow the rules of nature. His body stretches beyond logic, suggesting that he is not bound by the same laws as others. And yet, he does not use this to dominate or control. Instead, he treats his gifts casually, even playfully, as if to show that freedom is most powerful when it is gentle. This cosmic lightness carries a lesson. True power does not tighten its grip, but opens its hand. In quieter moments, we can see Jake's freedom reflected in how he views identity. He does not dwell on labels or categories. He does not worry about being just right. He embraces the freedom to be contradictory, to change shape, not only in body, but in spirit. In a world where so many characters wrestle with who they are meant to be, Simon, Marceline, Princess Bubblegum, Jake stands apart. He accepts himself fully without struggle. His freedom is rooted in this acceptance. By being at peace with himself, he is free to stretch into anything. This acceptance gives him a serenity that others often lack. While Finn strains against destiny, while Bubblegum bends under the weight of duty, while Ice King loses himself in confusion, Jake simply is. His freedom allows him to float where others sink, to breathe where others hold their breath. For viewers, this becomes a quiet revelation. Perhaps freedom begins not with external choices, but with the internal release of needing to be anything other than who we are. And so, as we explore the philosophy of Jake the dog, we begin to see that freedom is not only his gift, but his way of teaching. Through stretching, napping, laughing, and simply being, he shows us that freedom is not a prize to be earned. It is a way of living, available in each breath, if we choose to loosen our grip on the walls we have built around ourselves. When we watch Jake move through the land of Ooo, His freedom is painted not only in his powers but in his choices. He does not cling to strict codes of honor or lists of obligations. Instead, he decides in the moment, guided by feeling rather than rigid rules. This does not mean he is careless. Rather, it means he values the freedom to shape his path as he walks it. For Jake, the present is always alive, always shifting, and to meet it fully, he must remain unbound. One of the clearest examples of this comes when Jake finds himself faced with problems that Finn would try to solve through sheer determination. Where Finn clenches his fists and sets his jaw, Jake often looks at the same problem and simply changes shape, slipping out of the trap or softening the blow. He does not deny that the challenge is real, but he refuses to let it cage him. This approach tells us something profound. Freedom is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to meet them without being trapped by them. Jake's philosophy of freedom also colors his sense of time. He is not in a hurry, nor does he constantly look to the horizon for what comes next. He allows himself to drift. In the world of adventure time, where prophecies, destinies, and looming threats often weigh heavily on the shoulders of its characters, Jake's refusal to be bound by the future feels almost radical. His freedom exists in the now. In his eyes, the present moment is not a stepping stone toward something greater. It is the treasure itself. This sense of freedom carries over into his relationships. Jake does not seek to possess or control the people he loves. With Lady Rainicorn, he accepts her fully as she is, even when they disagree or live in different rhythms. With Finn, he does not demand that his brother follow his own path, but instead allows him to grow, stumble, and find his way. With his children, he embraces their independence, never confining them to what he thinks they should be. His philosophy of freedom is not about solitude or detachment, but about loving without chain. There is a tenderness in this outlook. It suggests that true freedom is not isolation, but trust. To love someone freely is to trust them enough to let them be themselves. Jake's relationships embody this truth. He does not love by holding tightly, but by opening his arms wide, stretching as far as needed to give space. His magic becomes the metaphor for this love, always flexible, always accommodating, always leaving room. Jake's freedom also challenges the very structures of Ooo. Many of its rulers and leaders, from Princess Bubblegum to the Lich's dark dominion, operate through control. They impose order, whether benevolent or destructive, shaping the world through rules, laws, and boundaries. Jake lives outside of that system. He is loyal to his friends, but he does not bind himself to kingdoms or titles. His allegiance is to the flow of life itself, not to institutions. In this way, Jake quietly resists the idea that freedom can be handed down from authority. For him, freedom is innate, woven into his being. And yet Jake is not anarchic. He does not tear down kingdoms or seek to undo order. His freedom is gentler, more personal. He respects others' choices while guarding his own. He does not need to fight against authority because he simply exists beyond it, content to stretch around its edges. This attitude reflects a quiet truth. Freedom does not always mean rebellion. Sometimes it means simply refusing to be caged without declaring war on the cage itself. We can also see the depth of Jake's philosophy in the moments when he teaches Finn about freedom. At times, Finn's desire to be the perfect hero blinds him to other possibilities. He ties himself to expectation, to what he thinks a hero must do. Jake, in his easy way, reminds him that being free means being able to choose differently. Sometimes the heroic path is not the one that saves the day. Sometimes it is the path that protects one's heart or honors one's spirit. Jake shows Finn that freedom is the space to choose what matters most in the moment, not what tradition demands. There is a scene in which Finn frets over whether he is living up to his destiny, worrying that he might be failing as a hero. Jake, rather than offering strict advice, simply tells him to relax, to live, to stop worrying about being something, and instead just be. This advice seems simple, even dismissive, but its weight lingers. Jake is saying that freedom begins when we stop trying to fit ourselves into molds, that we are already enough, exactly as we are. For Finn, this is a lesson he must hear many times. And for us, It is a truth that resonates deeply in our own restless lives. Jake's freedom is also a refusal to be consumed by fear. Fear thrives on confinement, on the belief that we have no way out. Jake, with his ever-changing form, lives in a world where there is always a way out. His very body is proof that nothing is fixed, that every situation contains hidden doors. In this way, his freedom becomes a philosophy of hope. He does not despair because he knows there is always another shape to take, another angle to try, another path to walk. This perspective offers a powerful comfort to those who feel trapped, whether by circumstance, fear, or expectation. Jake's philosophy whispers that we too are more flexible than we know, that we carry within us the ability to shift, to change, to find new forms when the old ones no longer serve us. His freedom is not only magical, it is symbolic of the freedom that exists in each of us, waiting to be stretched into the open air. Jake's philosophy of freedom also reveals itself in the way he approaches destiny. In Ooo, destiny is a heavy theme. Prophecies swirl around heroes and villains alike. The crown pulls Simon into madness. The Enchiridion lays out paths of chosen ones. Even Finn, so often restless in his youth, feels the pull of fate pressing upon him, demanding that he live up to something greater. Jake listens to all of this with a quiet shrug. For him, destiny is not a chain. It is, at most, a suggestion. He does not believe in being locked into one outcome. Instead, he trusts that each moment can be met freely, without the weight of what is supposed to happen. This refusal to be bound by fate gives him a calm resilience that others lack. When Finn worries about being the hero and Princess Bubblegum strains under the burden of ruling, when Marceline wrestles with the shadow of her past, Jake is free. He does not carry history on his shoulders or tremble at the thought of the future. His freedom is in the present, in the act of choosing again and again, without needing to define the choice as final. He shows us that life, at its core, is not a single path, but an unfolding, a river that bends endlessly. This river-like way of living also touches how Jake views morality. Finn often tries to see things in stark contrasts, right versus wrong, good versus evil. But Jake's philosophy of freedom accepts that life is far murkier. Sometimes he encourages Finn to step back from rigid definitions, to see that situations are not always black and white. He is not dismissing morality, but softening, reminding us that freedom also means holding space for complexity. His relaxed, humorous tone disguises this as casual advice, but it carries great weight. By choosing freedom from rigid judgment, Jake teaches a philosophy of compassion. And perhaps this compassion is what makes his freedom so unique. Many characters who claim to value freedom fall into selfishness or destruction. The Lich seeks freedom from life itself, unraveling all into silence. Hunson Abadir wields freedom as a mask for his hunger for power. Even some of Finn's foes claim they are free because they refuse to follow rules. Jake stands apart because his freedom does not take from others. Instead, it creates space for others. His flexibility, his trust, his humor, all of these make room for people to be themselves without fear of being caged. True freedom, in Jake's eye, is expansive enough to hold everyone. This becomes especially moving when we look at Jake as a father. His pups each live wildly different lives: adventurers, business owners, explorers, wanderers. Jake never forces them into one mold. He does not demand that they follow his path or Finn's or anyone's. Instead, he gives them freedom to stretch into their own shapes, even if those shapes take them far from him. This is a difficult form of freedom because it requires letting go, and yet Jake accepts it with the same calm ease he brings to every challenge. His philosophy tells us that love does not confine. It trusts enough to release. His freedom also shines in the way he approaches his own mortality. Jake knows he will not live forever, and rather than clinging desperately to more time, he accepts this truth as part of life's flow. We see this especially in Together Again, where Jake embraces death not as an end, but as another doorway. He chooses to let go, to be free even in that final transition. For many characters, mortality is a cage. For Jake, it is simply another shape to stretch into. His freedom is so complete that even the ultimate boundary, death itself, cannot hold him. This acceptance ripples outward into how Jake handles fear of loss. Where Finn agonizes over protecting those he loves, Jake simply loves them in the moment, without fear of what might come. He does not hold back his affection or his playfulness. His freedom allows him to give fully without the weight of constant worry. In this way, he shows us that freedom is not the absence of care, but the absence of fear's grip on care. Jake's philosophy also speaks quietly to the viewer. It invites us to imagine our own lives as a canvas that can stretch and change. Too often, we feel trapped by jobs, by expectation, by our own self-doubt. Jake's easy smile and flowing form remind us that we too can shift. That even if the walls seem solid, there is often a window we have not seen, a softness we have not tried, a new shape we have yet to discover. His freedom whispered, possibility is always near if we allow ourselves to loosen. And in those small nighttime reflections, as we lie in bed listening, Jake's message feels like a lullaby. He is telling us that we are not bound by the rigid stories we tell about ourselves. We are free to grow, to change, to rest, to laugh, to simply be. His freedom is not abstract or unreachable. It is lived in every stretch of his golden body, in every nap beneath the sun, in every gentle chuckle when the world takes itself too seriously. It is a freedom we can carry with us, quietly, into our own dream. If we look closely, we notice that Jake's philosophy of freedom is never about escape. He is not running away from responsibility, nor is he rejecting the bonds of love or friendship. Instead, his freedom is about moving within those bonds without being strangled by them. He remains loyal to Finn, devoted to Lady Rainicorn, present for his children, but he does so on his own terms, with a flexibility that keeps love from hardening into obligation. His way of being teaches that freedom is not the absence of connection, but the art of living in connection without losing oneself. This can be seen most clearly in the dynamic between Finn and Jake. Finn often wants rules to anchor him, a path to prove he is the hero he dreams of being. Jake offers something different. He shows Finn that freedom allows for mistakes, for detours, for days when the heroic thing is to simply rest. By modeling this, Jake helps Finn discover that true strength is not about following a rigid script, but about being able to adjust when life shifts. His calm laughter in the middle of danger, his willingness to sit out a fight until the right moment. All of these serve as reminders that freedom can be wise. At the same time, Jake's freedom does not mean indifference. He may shrug at destiny, but when it matters most, he acts decisively. He stretches into walls to protect Finn, throws himself into battles when his family is threatened, and rises when the land of Ooo needs him. This balance between freedom and commitment is at the heart of his philosophy. He is free not because he avoids responsibility, but because he does not let responsibility consume him. He shows us that we can meet duty without letting it define every corner of our lives. There is a spiritual weight to this freedom. Jake seems to understand, even if only in a playful, instinctive way, that life is fleeting. He does not waste it chasing ideals that trap him in endless striving. Instead, he stretches into each moment, savoring. His freedom feels like a soft defiance of the pressures that weigh down other characters. Princess Bubblegum is trapped by her duty to the Candy Kingdom. Ice King is bound by the crown's curse. Even Finn, in his restless youth, often binds himself to ideas of what a hero must be. Jake alone drifts beyond these chains, reminding us that it is possible to live lightly, even in a world heavy with expectation. This is why Jake resonates so deeply with those who watch him. He is not only funny or loyal, he is a living reminder that we too can breathe easier, that we can loosen the stories that hold us tightly, that we can find joy without needing to control everything. In a strange way, Jake's silly songs and love for pancakes become more than quirks, they are teachings. They remind us that freedom often looks like play, that joy itself is a radical expression of being unbound. Even the way Jake speaks embodies this. His voice is never rushed. He draws out words with a lazy warmth, letting each sentence unfold at its own pace. In the middle of chaos, this unhurried cadence becomes soothing, as if reminding everyone that they do not need to match the speed of the storm. His very speech is a philosophy: to slow down, to make room, to not let urgency steal peace. At night, when the world grows quiet, Jake's freedom feels even clearer. He sprawls across couches, drapes himself like a blanket over his friends, and rests without guilt. In those simple acts, he teaches us the kind of freedom most of us long for: freedom to rest without apology, to take up space without fear, to let ourselves be exactly as we are. His naps are not laziness. They are symbols of release, of trust, of letting life hold us rather than gripping it too tightly. If freedom is the river that carries Jake through life, then responsibility is the stone resting beneath its current. He cannot ignore it, nor does he wish to, but he chooses to let it shape him gently rather than weigh him down. For Jake, the great puzzle of living is not choosing between play and responsibility, but weaving them together into one flowing fabric. He is both a playful trickster and a devoted companion, a napper in the sun, and a father with duties at home. His philosophy rests in holding these roles lightly, never letting one drown the other. From the very beginning, Jake's playful nature is impossible to miss. He is a lover of jokes, of games, of silly songs and endless snacks. He stretches his body into wild shapes for fun as often as for battle, finding delight in the simple act of being flexible. His joy is contagious, lightening even the heaviest moments of Finn's adventures. Yet woven into this is his role as Finn's protector and guide, the one who steadies his younger brother when danger looms. This duality is what makes Jake unique. His laughter is not a rejection of responsibility, but a reminder that duty need not silence joy. Consider how often Finn rushes forward with a sense of obligation, eager to be the perfect hero. Jake follows, but he does not match Finn's intensity. Instead, he brings play into the responsibility, turning danger into a kind of game, transforming battles into opportunities for humor. This is not recklessness, it is philosophy. That responsibility is easier to carry when lightened with joy. Jake teaches that the two are not enemies, but allies, each strengthening the other. His role as a partner to Lady Rainicorn adds another layer to this balance. Their relationship is filled with tenderness, music, and play. Yet when challenges arise, Jake does not run from them. He stays loyal and present, even when responsibility feels heavy. What is striking is that he never sacrifices playfulness to fulfill his role. He continues to joke, to laugh, to be light. By doing so, he shows us that responsibility does not demand the death of joy. In fact, joy can be the very thing that sustains responsibility through its most tiring season. The philosophy deepens when we look at Jake as a father. His pups are each wildly independent, living lives that often take them far from him. Jake does not force them into strict roles, nor does he retreat into endless detachment. He hovers between play and duty, showing care without suffocating, allowing freedom while remaining present. His parenting style might seem unusual, but it embodies a gentle wisdom. Responsibility does not mean control. It means showing up even imperfectly, while still making space for joy. There are moments in the series when Jake leans too far into play, forgetting his responsibilities. These missteps highlight the fragility of his balance. Yet even then, his willingness to admit mistakes and return to what matters becomes another lesson. He shows us that balance is not about perfect mastery, but about constant adjustment. We are always leaning one way or another, always in motion, always learning. Jake's openness to correction is part of his strength. He does not cling to pride. He laughs at himself, resets, and tries again. This balance between play and responsibility also defines his role in Ooo at large. While kingdoms rise and cosmic beings stir, Jake rarely claims the mantle of leader or savior. Yet he is there again and again when Finn needs him, when Ooo trembles, when the moment calls for courage. His playfulness allows him to step lightly, but his loyalty ensures that he never abandons the weight that must be carried. This dynamic makes him a quiet anchor in a world of shifting extremes. At night, when the day is done, Jake's philosophy becomes clearest. He may sit with Finn, sharing food and laughter, reflecting on their journey. In these moments, we see that responsibility has not crushed his spirit, and play has not made him careless. Instead, the two dance together in him, creating a harmony that feels both rare and deeply human. He is telling us, in his own lazy, golden way, that we do not need to choose between joy and duty. We can hold them both if we learn to carry them lightly. Oh, when we explore Jake's philosophy more deeply, it becomes clear that his sense of balance is not something he learned from rule or tradition. It is instinctive, woven into his nature like the stretch of his skin. He seems to understand that life is both fragile and joyful, and that one cannot be lived well without the other. If we are all rope walkers on the tight line between order and chaos, Jake reminds us that the secret to balance is not stiffness, but flexibility. This balance shines in the way Jake comforts Finn when responsibility becomes overwhelming. Finn often shoulders burdens too heavy for a boy his age, desperate to be the hero everyone needs him to be. Jake listens, sometimes offering words of wisdom, other times offering nothing more than a goofy face or a warm paw on the shoulder. To Finn, these gestures are more than comfort, they are lessons. Jake is teaching him that responsibility does not mean carrying the world alone, and that even in the heaviest moments, play has the power to lighten the load. It is in this role as an older brother that Jake's philosophy finds one of its purest expression. He is not only Finn's companion in battle, but his gentle teacher in the quieter lessons of life. Finn sees responsibility as a weight to bear at all times. Jake shows him that play can exist within responsibility, that laughter can walk beside duty without diminishing it. This balance shapes Finn's growth, softening his hard edges, helping him learn that being a hero does not mean sacrificing joy. Jake's philosophy also emerges in the way he deals with mistakes. Many characters in Ooo struggle with guilt when they fail. Princess Bubblegum works tirelessly to erase her errors through control. Marceline hides her regrets in music and solitude. Even Finn tortures himself with self-doubt when he makes the wrong choice. Jake takes another path. When he stumbles, he admits it, laughs at it, and finds his way back. This does not mean he dismisses his responsibilities. It means he allows playfulness to coexist with accountability. His approach shows us that mistakes are not the end of responsibility, but a natural part of living. There is a wisdom here that often slips by unnoticed. Jake's lightheartedness is not avoidance, but a method of healing. By laughing at his flaws, he softens their sting. By stretching into new shapes after failure, he embodies the truth that we are not locked into our misstep. This balance between joy and accountability is what allows him to keep moving forward without being crushed. It is a philosophy we can carry into our own lives, that to balance play and responsibility is to hold our flaws gently, to admit them honestly, and to keep walking. Jake's philosophy is also reflected in his music. When he strums his viola, the melodies are often playful, yet tinged with warmth and care. Music becomes the bridge between joy and duty, a space where play serves responsibility and responsibility enriches play. Through music, Jake shows that the two are not separate, but threads of the same song. Play gives life its color, and responsibility gives it its shape. Together they create harmony. The land of Ooo itself often forces its inhabitants into extremes, kings and rulers consumed by duty, villains lost in reckless freedom. Jake stands in the middle, embodying the balance that so few can hold. He is not trapped in the seriousness of leaders, nor in the chaos of anarchists. Instead, he plays while protecting, naps while watching over, jokes while bidding. His presence offers a vision of what it means to live responsibly without losing one's soul to rigidity. Even in his domestic life, this balance is clear. With Lady Rainicorn, Jake does not take himself too seriously, yet he remains committed to it. Their love is playful, filled with shared laughter and little moments of silliness. But beneath it is a steady loyalty, an unspoken responsibility that keeps their bond strong. The balance between joy and duty is not just a philosophy for Jake. It is how he loves. It is what makes his relationships thrive. As we lie with these thoughts in the quiet of night, it becomes easier to see why Jake's philosophy feels so comforting. He teaches us that responsibility does not need to steal the softness from our days. We can work, care, and show up for those we love, while still holding on to laughter, naps, and small delights. In fact, the balance between the two may be the very thing that allows us to endure. When we follow Jake through his daily life, we begin to notice that his philosophy is not grand or lofty, but lived in small choices. He makes room for play in the middle of responsibility, and room for responsibility in the middle of play. This rhythm is what keeps him steady. To him, there is no strict separation between the two. Building a sandwich can be as important as saving the kingdom, because both carry the same heart, a chance to be present, to care, to live fully. One of the most striking examples comes when Jake is drawn into Finn's relentless desire to chase down every adventure. Finn burns with urgency, desperate to prove himself, while Jake lingers, suggesting a slower pace or a lighter approach. These moments are not laziness disguised, but philosophy in action. Jake knows that rushing blindly into duty can cause more harm than good, and that joy, when carried into responsibility, allows us to see more clearly. His calm presence reminds Finn that responsibility is not about being consumed. It is about serving well without losing oneself. We can also see Jake's philosophy in the way he handles danger. For Finn, danger is often a test, a moment to rise and prove his strength. For Jake, danger is real, but it is not always heavy. He often diffuses tense situations with humor or a playful shape, not to belittle the moment, but to balance it. This balance is important. If responsibility becomes too heavy, it leads to despair. If play becomes too dominant, it leads to recklessness. Jake walks the line between the two, showing us that the healthiest way forward is to carry both at once. This balance is echoed in how Jake views family. With his children, he does not enforce strict roles. He allows them to grow into who they are meant to be, even if that means drifting far from him. Yet he never stops caring, never stops being present when they need him. He brings play into their lives through games and jokes, but also responsibility through loyalty and support. He does not confuse play with neglect, nor responsibility with control. His parenting becomes an example of how to live at the crossroads of the two, teaching his pups that life can be joyful and serious all at once. It is worth noticing that Jake does stumble. There are times when his play overshadows his responsibilities, leaving others frustrated or disappointed. Finn especially feels the sting when Jake chooses a nap over a quest, or a snack over serious discussion. But what makes Jake remarkable is his willingness to admit these flaws and find balance again. He never pretends to be perfect. Instead, he shows us that balance is not a fixed state, but a practice. We wobble, we tip, we correct, and in the correction itself lies wisdom. Jake's approach to mistakes is another teaching in balance. Where others might spiral into guilt, Jake chooses laughter. He does not deny when he has gone too far into play, but he does not let the mistake consume him either. He accepts it, chuckles, and adjusts. In this way, he holds responsibility without letting it turn into self-punishment, and play without letting it drift into irresponsibility. His attitude shows us that life is not about never tipping the scale, but about gently bringing it back when we do. This lesson extends to his relationship with Finn's growth. As Finn matures, his responsibilities deepen, and sometimes his youthful fire dims under their weight. Jake responds by bringing play into those moments, not to undo Finn's responsibility, but to remind him of joy's importance. At the same time, Jake also knows when to step up, when Finn needs more than jokes. In those moments, Jake shows that play can support responsibility, just as responsibility can give structure to play. The two are not rivals, they are partners. The world of Ooo itself reflects extreme. Rulers consumed by duty, villains consumed by chaos. Jake's balance between play and responsibility offers a third path, a middle way that feels more sustainable. His philosophy suggests that to live fully, we must neither drown in obligation nor abandon it altogether. We must learn to carry responsibility with a light hand and play with a steady heart. This balance is rare, but it is what makes Jake's presence so vital, not only for Finn, but for the entire world around him. At night, when the day quiets and Jake stretches out with a soft sigh, This philosophy feels especially clear. He has fought battles and shared laughter, guided his brother and eaten stacks of pancakes, straddling play and duty without letting either one rule him completely. His life is a lullaby of balance, reminding us that we do not need to sacrifice joy to fulfill our roles, nor abandon our roles to hold on to joy. We can hold both softly in the same hand. There is something quietly radical in Jake's way of living. In a culture where responsibility is often framed as sacrifice and play is dismissed as distraction, Jake insists that the two can coexist. He resists the idea that duty must always be heavy, that responsibility requires grim determination. Instead, he offers a softer alternative: responsibility supported by joy, joy grounded by responsibility. His life shows that the two are not at odds, but rather depend on each other like sunlight and shadow. We see this in the way he protects Finn. When danger comes, Jake does not hesitate to act. His responsibility as a brother is unwavering. Yet even as he shields Finn or stretches himself into impossible forms to keep him safe, his tone remains light, his words infused with humor. This is not because he takes the threat lightly, but because he knows that fear and tension do not make responsibility easier to bear. By wrapping duty in play, he transforms it into something sustainable, something human. This philosophy extends to his role as a partner. With Lady Rainicorn, Jake embodies both devotion and delight. He is responsible in his commitment to her, yet never loses the spark of playfulness that keeps their bond alive. Many relationships in O are strained by duty, by power, by the weight of roles and titles. Jake and Lady Rainicorn's bond thrives because it does not lean too far into seriousness or too far into frivolity. It dances in the space between, where love feels free yet grounded. As a father, Jake's philosophy becomes even clearer. Responsibility to his pups could have consumed him, but he refuses to let it harden to control. He cares deeply, yet allows them the freedom to grow as they wish. At the same time, his playfulness does not drift into neglect. He is present, loving, and available. This balance may look unusual, even flawed, but it carries wisdom. To raise others well is not to bind them tightly, but to let them discover their own shapes while knowing they are loved. There is also a cosmic gentleness in how Jake balances play and responsibility in the face of mortality. When he eventually embraces his own passing, he does so with ease. He accepts that responsibility ends, that play too will quiet, and that both together have created a life well lived. In this acceptance, his philosophy comes full circle. Play and responsibility are not permanent states, but companions for the journey. When one ends, the other bows gracefully, and what remains is the love that carried both. For us, listening in the dark, Jake's philosophy becomes a soft reassurance. Many of us feel torn between duty and delight, between the need to meet obligations and the desire to enjoy life's small moments. Jake reminds us that this tension does not need to be resolved by choosing one over the other. Instead, we can weave them together. We can work while laughing, care while resting, serve while singing. The two are not rivals, but threads in the same tapestry. This is perhaps Jake's most important teaching. It is easy to think of responsibility as the serious side of life and play as the frivolous side. But Jake shows us that they are not sides at all, but halves of a whole. Without play, responsibility becomes a burden that crushes. Without responsibility, play becomes empty and shallow. Together, they give life its depth and its lightness. Together, they make life sustainable, meaningful, and kind. So when we think of Jake the dog, let us remember not only his jokes, his naps, or his loyalty, but the delicate dance he lived each day. He taught us that balance is not about perfection, but about movement, correcting, adjusting, always holding both play and responsibility without letting either slip away. His life was a reminder that joy and duty are not opposite, but companions, and that in their embrace lies the secret to a life both light and steady. And with that balance resting gently in our thoughts, we can turn to the next part of Jake's philosophy, his deep comfort with impermanence, and the way he teaches us to hold even life and death in the same calm, playful embrace. If Jake's balance of play and responsibility makes him a guide for living, then his comfort with impermanence makes him a guide for dying and for letting go. Few characters in Adventure Time embody the fleeting nature of life as gently as Jake. He is never shaken by the passage of time, never frantic to hold on to what is slipping away. Where others clutch tightly at permanence, Jake opens his hands and lets life flow through his fingers. In this, he carries a philosophy that feels ancient, reminding us that change is not an enemy, but a companion walking beside us. From the earliest days of the series, Jake is marked by his laid-back attitude toward ending. He does not fight against the natural rhythm of things. When adventures end, he shrugs with a smile. When plans collapse, he laughs and stretches into a new form. To some, this might look like avoidance, but when seen closely, it is acceptance. Jake has no need to freeze time or trap moments in glass. He understands that all things pass, and that the passing itself is part of their beauty. This comfort with impermanence becomes clearest when we think of his eventual death. In Together Again, we see Jake embrace the end of his life, not with terror, but with peace. He accepts death as a continuation, as simply another path to walk. For him, impermanence is not something to resist, but something to lean into, a final stretch of his golden body into the great unknown. His calmness in this moment is not cold detachment. It is love. He knows that clinging to life too tightly would dishonor the joy of living it. By letting go, he shows us that endings can be met with the same ease as beginning. There is wisdom here for every character in Ooo and for every viewer lying awake in the quiet hours of the night. Marceline struggles with the endlessness of her long life. Princess Bubblegum clings to control as if permanence could be built with rule. Finn himself fears losing those he loves. Jake, with his laughter and naps, teaches them another way, that we cannot stop change, but we can soften into it. By choosing not to fear impermanence, we can find peace in the very flow of time. What makes Jake's comfort so remarkable is that it does not make him distant. He still loves deeply and still cares fiercely, still throws himself into life with appetite and humor. His acceptance of impermanence does not dull his joy, it enriches it. Every pancake becomes more precious because he does not expect it to last forever. Every nap is sweeter because he knows the waking will come. Every laugh is brighter because he does not try to trap it in the air. By embracing change, Jake heightens his appreciation of the moment. This perspective is not far from ancient philosophies that speak of impermanence, the heart of life. In Buddhist thought, impermanence, anicca, is the truth that nothing lasts, that all things shift and transform. Jake seems to live this truth naturally, without needing to name it. He does not resist change. He embodies it in every stretch of his body, in every casual shrug, in every acceptance of what comes next. His powers themselves are impermanent. By nature, no form lasts, each one shifting into the next. In this way, Jake is a living symbol of impermanence, teaching through his very being. And yet Jake never treats this as tragic. Where others mourn what fades, Jake delights in its passing. He knows that beauty lies in the cycle that day must fade for night to come, that laughter fades so that silence can be heard, that life itself is precious because it is brief. This comfort does not mean he is immune to sadness. We see him grieve and worry it, but beneath it all is a deep trust that change itself is good, that endings are not failures but transformation. For us listening now, this teaching feels like a lullaby against the fear of loss. So many of us struggle with impermanence, clinging tightly to moments, dreading the passing of time. Jake's philosophy offers a softer path. He invites us to lie back, to stretch out, to feel the flow of time without fighting. He reminds us that impermanence makes moments meaningful, that nothing needs to last forever in order to matter. His philosophy is a gentle hand on our shoulder, telling us that it is okay to let go. Jake's comfort with impermanence also shines in the way he guides others through their fears. Finn, so full of youthful fire, often resists the idea of ending. To Finn, an ending feels like failure, like the loss of everything that matters. Jake never argues with him harshly, never scolds him for feeling this. Instead, he softens the fear with humor, nudging Finn toward the understanding that change is natural. He tells Finn to relax, to breathe, to take things they come. This guidance is not only practical, it is deeply philosophical. Jake is teaching Finn to trust the flow of time instead of fighting it. In many episodes, we see Jake laugh and plans unravel. The monster escapes, the quest collapses, the day does not go as expected. For Finn, this is often devastating. For Jake, it is simply another shape life has taken. He accepts the new form without resentment, reminding us that impermanence not always grand or tragic. Sometimes it is as simple as a day that didn't go the way we hoped. His response tells us that these small endings are just as important to accept as the larger one. By practicing ease with the little changes, we prepare ourselves for the greater one. Jake's relationship with Lady Rainicorn also reflects this philosophy. Their love is playful and tender, yet neither tries to control the other or freeze the relationship in a perfect shape. They allow their bond to change, to stretch with time, just as Jake's body does. This acceptance gives their love a strength that many others in Ooo struggle to find. Instead of fearing that love will fade, Jake embraces the truth that love evolves. It may change shape, but in that change lies its beauty. By releasing the need to hold it still, Jake keeps it alive. This outlook becomes even more powerful when Jake steps into fatherhood. He does not cling to his pups, demanding that they remain by his side. He accepts from the beginning that they will grow, change, and move away. While other parents might fight this truth, Jake allows it, even celebrates it. His comfort with impermanence frees his children to become themselves without guilt. He shows them that love does not depend on permanence, but thrives in freedom. In this way, his philosophy of impermanence becomes a gift to the next generation. We can also see how Jake's powers embody this teaching. Every stretch, every shift, every transformation is temporary. He cannot remain in one form forever. The beauty of his abilities lies in their impermanence, a shape held just long enough to serve its purpose, then released. His magic is not about clinging to a single identity, but about moving gracefully from one form to the next. This makes his powers not only useful, but symbolic. They are a constant reminder that life itself is fluid, that nothing is fixed. Jake's approach to death, shown most poignantly in Together Again, is perhaps the clearest expression of his philosophy. When his time comes, he does not fight it. He does not claw desperately at life. Instead, he accepts it with calmness, even joy. He meets death the way he meets life, as another adventure, another shape to try. This acceptance does not lessen his love for Finn, nor does it erase the sadness of separation, but it transforms death from a terror into a passage. His philosophy tells us that impermanence, even in its most final form, can be met with peace. For the audience, this moment is both heartbreaking and comforting. To see Jake, the easygoing sage, accept death so gently is to be reminded that endings do not destroy love. They simply change its form. Jake's bond with Finn continues, not in the permanence of physical presence, but in memory, in spirit, in the lessons carried forward. In this way, his philosophy offers hope that impermanence does not mean disappearance, but transformation into something new. At night, as we lie in bed with our own thoughts of endings, the end of a day, the fading of childhood, the inevitability of time, Jake's comfort with impermanence feels like a lullaby. He tells us that we do not need to fear these changes. We can rest in. We can trust that endings are not voids, but doorways. His philosophy eases the anxious heart, reminding us that impermanence is not a curse, but a gift, the very thing that makes life precious. Jake's philosophy of impermanence does not only reveal itself in the grand arc of life and death. It is present in the smallest details of how he moves through Ooo. When a song ends, he hums another. When a snack is gone, he happily makes more. When a day fades into night, he stretches and finds comfort in sleep. These small acceptances reflect his larger truth, that everything is temporary, and that the joy of life is found not in clinging, but in flowing. By practicing ease in the little things, he shows us how to live with ease when larger endings arrive. This way of being becomes especially clear in contrast to those around him. Princess Bubblegum constantly tries to resist impermanence, clinging to control through science, rules, and governance. Marceline, with her long life, struggles with watching others fade away, haunted by impermanence in a more painful way. Even Finn resists the passing of time, longing to freeze moments of victory, to hold on to love, to avoid the sting of loss. Jake, meanwhile, walks gently beside them all, embodying a philosophy they cannot yet grasp. That impermanence is not the enemy, but the natural shape of life. One of the most powerful things Jake teaches is that impermanence allows for renewal. Because things end, new things can begin. A broken plan becomes space for a new adventure. A faded friendship can transform into memory that still holds warmth. Even death, in Jake's eyes, is not a collapse, but a continuation, the opening of another door. His comfort with endings makes him more alive to beginning. He sees the cycle as a circle, not a cliff. His humor is also part of this philosophy. By laughing at the fleeting nature of life, Jake softens what could otherwise be unbearable. He does not use humor to escape impermanence, but to embrace it. A silly song sung during a dangerous quest, a joke cracked when things seem grim. These are not denials of reality. They are acknowledgments that even in the face of impermanence, joy is still possible. In fact, joy becomes more essential precisely because nothing lasts. We see this lesson most tenderly in his friendship with Finn. Finn grows, changes, and matures throughout the series. The bond between them shifts with these changes. At first, Jake is the older brother guiding a child. Later, he becomes more of a companion to a young man finding his own way. Eventually, he is the one who must step back, allowing Finn to walk alone. At no point does Jake fight these shifts. He accepts them, smiling as their relationship changes shape. This acceptance is what allows their love to endure. By refusing to demand permanence, Jake ensures that their bond adapts and survives. Jake's acceptance of impermanence also frees him from the anxiety of comparison. He does not measure himself against what he used to be or against what others have become. He does not cling to youth, nor does he chase power for the sake of permanence. He lives lightly, content to be who he is in the moment. This lightness is a gift to those around him. In a world of characters tormented by who they were or who they should be, Jake's ease is a reminder that impermanence gives us the freedom to simply be. There is also a cosmic resonance to his philosophy. Jake's stretchy body seems to defy the rules of permanence. He is constantly in flux, never truly fixed, always transforming. This makes him a living metaphor for impermanence itself. And yet, unlike others who resist this truth, Jake celebrates it. His body is not a prison, but a playground, a symbol of life's ever-changing nature. Every stretch he makes is a teaching. That form is temporary and that we are never locked. The change itself can be joyful. When Jake eventually meets death, his ease with impermanence becomes the most profound comfort he leaves behind. He does not see it as the end of his philosophy, but the fulfillment of it. For years he lived accepting change, and so when the final change arrives, he meets it as naturally as he met every other. For Finn, this is a devastating lesson, yet it is also a gift. Jake's passing shows Finn and us that impermanence does not destroy love. It only shifts it into new shape, carrying forward in memory, in influence, in the soft echo of laughter that lingers long after the sound has faded. At night, when we lie with the quiet weight of our own fear, Jake's comfort with impermanence is a gentle balm. He whispers that it is okay to let days end, to let chapters close, to let even the strongest bonds change. Endings are not voids, but transition. Each one makes room for the next. His philosophy turns impermanence into something beautiful, something we can hold not with fear, but with gratitude. Jake's relationship with impermanence also helps us reimagine what it means to hold on to memory. Many characters in Ooo clutch their past so tightly that it weighs them down. Marceline carries centuries of pain. Simon is consumed by the ghost of who he once was. Even Finn, young as he is, struggles with heartbreak and the desire to freeze perfect moments. Jake, by contrast, treats memory as something to be cherished lightly. He remembers with warmth, but he does not let the past shackle him. His ability to laugh when recalling old adventures, to speak fondly of what is gone without sadness consuming him, is another reflection of his philosophy. For Jake, Memories are gifts meant to be held softly, not anchors that drag us into stillness. This lightness of heart is part of what makes Jake so comforting to those around him. In a world full of chaos, impermanence often feels threatening. Things change too quickly, and with change comes uncertainty. Jake's calm presence steadies those currents. He reminds Finn, Lady Rainicorn, his children, and even us that change can be met with peace. His laughter in the middle of endings becomes a kind of lantern guiding others through the darkness of impermanence. Even in moments of grief, Jake embodies this balance. He does not deny pain when it comes. He feels it, acknowledges it, but does not let it consume him. His acceptance of impermanence allows him to honor grief without being swallowed by it. This is one of his most subtle lessons, that impermanence applies not only to joy, but also to sorrow. Pain, too, will pass, shifting into memory, into growth, into love carried forward. This truth allows Jake to meet life with open arms, trusting that no feeling lasts forever, and that each has its place in the larger story. Yet to Jake's impermanence also plays into his humor in a deeper way. At first glance, his jokes seem to be nothing more than a way to lighten the mood. But when we look closer, we realize they are also philosophical. His humor acknowledges that everything is fleeting. A laugh only lasts a moment, yet it leaves behind warmth that lingers. By choosing to laugh often, Jake is celebrating impermanence itself. He teaches us that joy does not need to be eternal to be meaningful. A single moment of laughter is enough to make a life brighter. For viewers, this philosophy is not only soothing, but liberating. We spend so much time fearing change, dreading endings, and trying to hold on to what slips through our fingers. Jake shows us another path. He reminds us that impermanence is not an enemy to battle, but a teacher to learn from. The end of a day invites the rest of night. The end of a song makes space for silence. The end of a life makes room for love to take on new form. By leaning into impermanence, Jake frees us from the grip of fear and invites us into gratitude. This gratitude is at the heart of his entire worldview. Because Jake accepts that nothing lasts, he treasures everything more deeply. Pancakes taste better because they will be gone soon. A nap feels more precious because it will end. Time with Finn shines brighter because he knows it will change. His philosophy does not diminish the value of moments, it heightens them. He lives with an awareness that every moment is a gift, not because it lasts forever, but because it does not. And so when Jake finally lets go, he leaves behind not emptiness, but fullness. His acceptance of impermanence allows those who loved him to carry forward with peace. For Finn, the pain is immense, yet Jake's philosophy remains like a gentle hand on his shoulder, reminding him that their bond has not ended, only shifted. For us, the viewers, his passing is not just a farewell, but a teaching. He shows us that endings can be beautiful, that impermanence can be comforting, that love is not destroyed by change, but transformed by it. As we rest with these thoughts in the quiet of night, Jake's philosophy of impermanence becomes more than a lesson from a cartoon dog. It becomes a lullaby for our own lives. He tells us softly that we do not need to fear the fading of moments. We can welcome them, honor them, and let them go. In doing so, we make room for new light to enter, for new joys to bloom, for love to flow in forms we cannot yet imagine. And so, with Jake's comfort surrounding us like a warm blanket, we turn to the next part of his philosophy, the lessons of love and connection, and how his gentle heart teaches that to live freely is also to love freely, without control, without fear, and without end. If impermanence is the rhythm of Jake's life, then love is the melody that plays above it. Everything about him, his humor, his loyalty, his presence, flows back to love. Not the dramatic kind sung in ballads or carved into monuments, but a quieter, gentler form. Jake's love is lived in small gestures. A lazy smile toward Finn, a silly song for Lady Rainicorn, a nap with his pups piled around him. These simple moments hold a philosophy of their own. For Jake, connection is not built in grand declarations, but in the everyday rhythm of being present. His bond with Finn is the clearest expression of this philosophy. From the very first adventure, Jake is not only Finn's partner, but his anchor. Their relationship is not defined by control or hierarchy, but by trust. Jake does not try to shape Finn into his own image, nor does he demand that Finn follow his every word. Instead, he gives him space to grow, sometimes stepping back, sometimes stepping in, always adjusting to what his brother needs. This kind of a love patient, flexible, trusting becomes the foundation of their adventure. In Jake's eyes, love is inseparable from play. He rarely separates the two. When Finn is anxious, Jake's first instinct is often a joke, a stretch, or a song. To him, love is not solemn, but joyful. It is not about holding someone tightly, but about lifting their heart when the world feels heavy. In this way, his philosophy of connection reshapes what we often think love must be. It does not always need to be serious. Sometimes it is lightness, a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, joy can still be shared. His relationship with Lady Rainicorn reveals another side of this philosophy. Their love is marked by ease. They accept each other as they are, without trying to force change. They speak in different languages, literally and figuratively, and yet they flow around these differences with grace. Jake does not demand complete understanding in every moment. Instead, he trusts the bond itself, knowing that love is not about perfect clarity, but about acceptance. His devotion is steady but never rigid. He shows us that connection is strongest when it is allowed to stretch, bend, and shift with time. Jake's philosophy of love is also seen in his parenting. With his pups, he embodies a love that is both responsible and free. He does not hover over them or bind them with expectations. Instead, he gives them the freedom to grow into their own lives, trusting that the love he shows them will guide their choices. This kind of parenting reflects a deep belief that love is not about control, but about trust. By releasing his children to find their own paths, he shows them that his love is not conditional. It is steady, even as it takes new forms. What makes Jake's philosophy of love and connection so moving is its humility. He does not present himself as a great teacher of relationships. He does not claim to know the secrets of the heart. Instead, he simply lives them, showing through laughter and presence what it means to love well. His philosophy is lived so naturally that those around him often do not realize they are being guided. But when we step back, it becomes clear. Jake is showing us that the greatest lessons in love are found not in grand gesture, but in ordinary kindness. This philosophy extends beyond his close family. Jake's way of loving is generous, spilling into his friendships and his encounters with strangers. He is rarely judgmental, quick to forgive, and eager to share warmth. He sees others not as puzzles to solve or problems to fix, but as companions on the same journey. This openness makes him a rare presence in Ooo, a world often divided by kingdoms and conflicts. Through Jake, we are reminded that love does not need to be dramatic to be powerful. It can be as simple as treating others with ease and kindness, day after day. For us listening now, this lesson feels especially soothing. So often we are told that love must be proven through effort, through sacrifice, through constant striving. Jake's philosophy offers another vision, that love can be gentle, playful, and natural. That love is not about control or perfection, but about presence. He shows us that connection is not something to grasp, but something to live one smile, one joke, one nap shared in the sunlight. Jake's philosophy of love becomes even more striking when we notice how little he seeks to possess. Many characters in Ooo cling tightly to what they love, trying to control it or shape it into something safe. Princess Bubblegum controls her people through science and rule, hoping that careful order will protect them. The Ice King kidnaps Princess, mistaking possession for love. Even Finn, at times, struggles with wanting to hold on to those he cares for, fearful of losing them. Jake, by contrast, never confuses love with ownership. He allows his loved ones to be themselves, even when that means they drift in directions he might not expect. This is clearest in his bond with Lady Rainicorn. Their relationship is steady, yet it never feels restrictive. Jake delights in her uniqueness, even when it means she speaks in words he doesn't always understand. Their love is not about changing each other, but about celebrating different. They make room for one another's quirks and needs, creating a relationship where freedom and connection intertwine. Jake shows us that love does not erase individuality, but holds it gently, weaving it into something larger without forcing sameness. With Finn, this philosophy takes another shape. Jake's love as an older brother is not about controlling Finn's choices, but about standing beside him through them. He lets Finn fail, lets him stumble, and then helps him rise again. To many, this might look like passivity, but it is actually trust. Jake believes in Finn enough to give him space. He knows that to love someone is to let them walk their own path, even if it is crooked. His presence is steady and ready to stretch into action when needed, but his love never suffocates. It breathes. When Jake becomes a father, this philosophy grows deeper. His children are a reflection of his trust in impermanence and his devotion to love without chains. Each of his pups pursues a wildly different life, some adventurous, some quiet, some ambitious, some wandering. Jake does not attempt to mold them into a single pattern. Instead, he loves them as they are, offering support without expectation. His parenting is imperfect, sometimes too relaxed. Yet it carries a profound wisdom, that love's role is not to shape others into our image, but to hold space for them to find their own. This way of loving requires courage. To allow freedom within love is to risk change, even loss. Jake's comfort with impermanence enables him to take that risk. He does not cling desperately to keep his loved ones close. He trusts that love itself is strong enough to stretch across distance and time. In this, his philosophy teaches us that love's strength lies not in how tightly we hold on, but in how freely we allow it to grow. Jake's lessons in love extend into his friendships beyond his family, whether helping BMO with their quirky dreams, sharing music with Marceline, or standing beside Princess Bubblegum in moments of crisis. Jake offers love without condition. He does not ask for reward or recognition. His affection is natural, woven into how he lives. This quiet generosity reflects a belief that connection is not something to be earned, but something to be shared. In every joke, every moment of comfort, Jake embodies a love that is not transactional, but abundant. Even his humor, which we so often see as lighthearted, is an expression of this philosophy. When Jake makes others laugh, he is not only playing, he is loving. He understands that joy creates connection, that a shared laugh builds bonds as strong as shared struggle. His jokes are never about superiority or cruelty. They are gifts, ways of lifting others up. Through laughter, Jake weaves threads of love into every encounter. For those of us listening in the quiet of night, Jake's philosophy offers comfort. We live in a world where love is often tied to demand, where connection feels like something to be proven or earned. Jake's life tells us another story. He shows us that love can be easy, gentle, playful, and real, that it does not require constant effort to hold together, but only presence, the willingness to be there, to share, to trust. His philosophy teaches us that love, at its best, is simple. Love for Jake is never a rigid thing. It does not have sharp edges or strict boundaries. It stretches and bends, much like his own body, adapting to what each moment needs. When Finn struggles with the weight of being a hero, Jake's love shows up as reassurance. When Lady Rainicorn needs companionship, his love shows up as playfulness. When his pups venture into the world, his love shows up as trust, allowing them to walk their paths freely. This adaptability is not indecision, but wisdom. Jake knows that love must take many forms if it is to endure. What makes Jake's philosophy so remarkable is that it strips away the drama often attached to love. In Ooo, many characters experience love as turmoil. Princess Bubblegum wrestles with her duties overshadowing her heart. Marceline's long life complicates her relationship, filling them with shadows of the past. Even Finn's youthful crushes are tinged with heartbreak and longing. Jake, however, treats love as natural and steady, not a battlefield, but a garden. He waters it with laughter, nourishes it with presence, and allows it to grow without forcing its shape. We can also see Jake's philosophy of love in his gentleness toward himself. He does not berate himself when he falters, nor does he carry endless guilt. This self-acceptance is an often overlooked form of love. By treating himself with kindness, Jake shows others how to do the same. His easy attitude reminds us that love is not only something given outward, but also something we must hold within. To love others well, we must first soften toward ourselves. Jake embodies this truth, moving through life with a heart that includes himself in its circle of care. Jake's music, too, becomes an expression of love. When he picks up his viola or strums a tune, he is not seeking fame or recognition. He is simply sharing part of himself. Music in his hands becomes a form of connection, a way of expressing love without words. These melodies are often playful, yet they carry tenderness. They remind us that love does not always need to be declared loudly. Sometimes it can be sung softly in simple notes that linger gently in the air. Even in battle, Jake's philosophy of love and connection shapes his choices. While Finn often fights with the intensity of duty, Jake approaches conflict with humor and care. He stretches into shields to protect rather than into weapons to destroy. He prioritizes keeping his friends safe over defeating enemies. In this way, his philosophy reveals that love is not separate from action. It can guide how we move, how we fight, and how we resolve conflict. Love for Jake is not a sentiment, but a force woven into every part of life. His relationship with impermanence deepens this philosophy. Because he accepts that nothing lasts forever, his love becomes freer. He does not cling desperately to keep things as they are. Instead, he loves in the moment, fully and openly, trusting that connection remains even as forms change. This makes his love stronger, not weaker. It is a love that adapts to change rather than breaking under it. For Finn, Lady Rainicorn, his children, and his friends, this becomes a steady source of comfort. Jake's philosophy also carries a quiet lesson about vulnerability. He does not hide his affection. He does not guard his emotions with walls of pride. When he loves, he shows it. He sings, he hugs, he jokes, he stretches into a comforting shape. His willingness to express love without fear teaches those around him that connection is not weakness, it is strength. In a world where many are afraid to show how deeply they care, Jake's openness becomes a beacon, reminding us that love grows strongest when it is shared freely. At night, when the noise of the day softens, Jake's philosophy of love feels especially tender. It tells us that we do not need to make love into something grand or complicated. We do not need to prove it or perfect it. We only need to live it in the small ways. A laugh shared, a hand held, a song hummed. Jake's lessons in love and connection are not lofty teachings, but gentle reminders that love is always within reach, in the simplest acts of presence. Jake's lessons in love are perhaps most visible in the silences between his words. He does not lecture or insist. He rarely tries to explain what love should be. Instead, he shows it in his way of being, sitting beside Finn during a long walk, offering his body as a shield without hesitation, leaning against Lady Rainicorn while sharing food in the quiet. These moments reveal more than any declaration. His philosophy tells us that connection is not something you need to define constantly. It is something you live quietly, day after day. In this way, Jake teaches that love is present. To be there fully and without distraction is the greatest gift one can offer. When Finn is lost in worry, Jake's presence calms him. When his pups wander far from home, they know they can return to their father's open arms. When Lady Rainicorn drifts into her own world, Jake remains nearby, steady and patient. His love does not demand constant attention, but it never fades. It is a steady glow, like the warmth of a campfire, always there when needed. This philosophy also speaks to the resilience of connection. Because Jake treats love as flexible and expansive, it does not break easily. Arguments may happen, distances may grow, but the bond remains. His connections endure because they are not built on control or rigidity. They are built on trust and acceptance. In this, Jake offers us a profound reminder. Love that seeks to dominate is fragile, but love that allows freedom is unshakable. Jake's philosophy also reveals itself in his approach to forgiveness. He does not hold grudges, nor does he demand perfection from those he loves. When mistakes are made, he moves on with ease, choosing laughter over resentment. This generosity of spirit makes his relationships stronger. Those around him know they are loved not because they are flawless, but because Jake's love is not conditional. It accepts imperfection, knowing that connection matters more than judgment. As Jake's story unfolds toward its end, we see how deeply this philosophy has shaped the world around him. Finn grows into a young man capable of balancing responsibility with joy, in part because Jake's love gave him room to stumble without fear. Lady Rainicorn and the pups live their lives freely, confident in Jake's steady devotion. Even the wider world of Ooo feels the ripple of his philosophy, for Jake's love was never limited to his closest circle. His warmth touched everyone he met, softening the rough edges of a world scarred by apocalypse and strangeness. For us, this lesson is as comforting as it is simple. Love does not need to be earned. It does not need to be proven through grand gesture. It is lived in presence, in trust, in kindness. Jake's philosophy invites us to release the fear that love will fade if we do not cling to it. Instead, he shows us that love is strongest when it is shared freely, when it is allowed to grow and change. At night, as we settle deeper into rest, these lessons in love and connection wrap around us like a blanket. Jake's laughter, his loyalty, his gentle way of being remind us that love is not distant or complicated. It is as close as the people beside us, as simple as a shared meal, as comforting as the presence of someone who stays. His philosophy tells us that to live well is to love well, and to love well is to be present, playful, and free. And with this thought, we arrive at the final layer of Jake's philosophy, his nature as a dreamer of Ooo, and how his playful imagination connects the ordinary to the cosmic, showing us that even the silliest moments can carry the deepest truth. If love and freedom are the roots of Jake's philosophy, then dreaming is its crown. Jake is more than a sage who lives in ease. He is a dreamer, a being who moves lightly between reality and imagination. In many ways, Jake embodies the spirit of dreaming itself. He does not treat the boundary between what is real and what is imagined as rigid. Instead, he flows between them with the same ease that he stretches his body. This quality makes him more than a companion to Finn. It makes him a bridge between the ordinary world of Ooo and the vast cosmic mysteries that surround it. From the earliest episodes, Jake is marked by his dreamlike quality. He drifts through life with a softness that feels almost otherworldly. When others rush, he lingers. When others panic, he laughs. Even his very form, constantly shifting, feels like something from a dream, unfixed, fluid, surreal. This dreamer's essence is not a flaw or a distraction. It is central to who he is. Jake teaches us that to live well is to dream well, to allow imagination and play to color the fabric of our days. Jake's dreams are not always literal, though sometimes they are. We see him wander through visions and dreamscapes, encountering strange truths about himself and the world. But even when awake, Jake carries the spirit of dreaming with him. He treats reality as pliable, open to reinterpretation, full of hidden doors. A fight becomes a game. A problem becomes a puzzle. A quiet afternoon nap becomes a journey of its own. This ability to dream while awake is what gives Jake his unique wisdom. He reminds us that life is not only about what is fixed, but about what can be imagined. In this sense, Jake is a storyteller within the story. He constantly reshapes the world around him with humor, songs, and fantastical ideas. To those beside him, these may seem like distractions. Yet beneath the silliness lies something profound. Jake is showing that imagination is not an escape from life, but a way of deepening it. By dreaming, we see more possibilities. By imagining, we soften the rigid edges of reality and find space to breathe. This dreamlike philosophy also links Jake to the cosmic threads woven through Adventure Time. The world of Ooo is full of entities that stretch beyond the ordinary Prismo, the cosmic owl, the endless multiverse of possibilities. Jake, with his mysterious powers, often seems closer to this realm than most. His body, capable of transformations that defy reason, suggests he is not fully bound by the same laws as others. And yet, unlike beings who are consumed by cosmic purpose, Jake treats these powers with playful ease. He reminds us that dreaming does not need to separate us from the everyday. It can live right alongside pancakes, naps, and jokes. This balance is what makes Jake's philosophy so beautiful. He dreams, but he does not drift away. He imagines, but he does not abandon reality. He carries both seamlessly. showing us that dreaming is not a retreat, but a form of presence. His laughter, his songs, his stretches, all of these are expressions of a dreamer living fully awake. For Finn, this is invaluable. Where Finn sometimes becomes trapped in the harshness of reality, Jake pulls him gently back into imagination, teaching him that dreaming is a form of strength, not weakness. At night, as we listen and drift toward our own dreams, Jake's philosophy feels especially close. He tells us, not with words, but with his way of living, that dreaming is sacred, that we are allowed to see life not only as it is, but as it could be. That imagination itself is a form of wisdom, expanding what is possible, softening what is hard, and reminding us that reality is never the whole story. In this way, Jake is not only a dreamer of Ooo, he is also a dreamer for us, guiding us to let our own imaginations rise as we drift deeper into sleep. Jake's dreamer's philosophy is also evident in how he views possibility. To him, the world is never closed. There is always another way to stretch, another way to solve, another shape to become. This is not only a reflection of his powers, but of his mindset. Where others see a wall, Jake imagines a tunnel beneath it. Where others see defeat, he imagines a playful twist that turns the situation on its head. His ability to imagine more than what is visible is a kind of dreaming made real, and it inspires those around him to see beyond their own limit. This perspective often saves Finn from despair. There are moments in the series when Finn feels crushed by failure or consumed by fear. Jake steps in, not always with solutions, but with imagination. He sings a silly song, stretches into an impossible shape, or paints the problem with humor. These acts may seem trivial, but they lift Finn out of narrowness and remind him of possibility. Jake's dreaming presence helps Finn breathe again, reminding him that the story is not over, that there is always more to imagine. His connection to Prismo is another layer of this philosophy. Prismo himself is a dream, a being who exists only while another sleeps. Jake's friendship with him suggests that Jake's dreamlike nature ties him to the wider cosmic mysteries of Ooo. He is comfortable in Prismo's space, where time and reality bend, as if he belongs there more than he belongs to the solid ground of Ooo. Yet unlike others who are unsettled by the strangeness of such realms, Jake treats it all as natural. He dreams not only in his sleep, but in the way he walks through existence, bridging the ordinary and the infinite, without fear. We also see this dreamer's quality in Jake's approach to identity. He does not fix himself to one definition. Warrior, father, musician, partner, wanderer. He wears all these identities lightly, moving between them as if they are costumes to be enjoyed rather than cages to be locked inside. This freedom is deeply dreamlike. In dreams, we are not one thing, but many, shifting from role to role, place to place, without strain. Jake's life mirrors this. His philosophy tells us that identity itself can be fluid, and that we are not diminished but enriched when we allow ourselves to shift. His humor is another expression of dreaming. Dreams often blend the strange and the familiar, the silly and the profound. Jake's jokes do the same. They turn the serious, the playful, the frightening into the absurd. This blending of tones reflects the dreamlike truth that opposites can exist together. By laughing in the face of tension, Jake reminds us that life itself is dream-shaped, full of contradictions that need not be resolved but simply accepted. What makes Jake's philosophy so accessible is that he never removes himself from the ordinary. Even as he touches cosmic mysteries and dreamlike spaces, he remains grounded in the simplest joy. He may wander into Prismo's realm, but he still loves pancakes. He may stretch into impossible forms, but he still naps lazily in the sun. This balance is what makes him relatable. He tells us that dreaming does not mean leaving the world behind, but embracing it more fully, coloring it with imagination. For us, listening in the stillness of night, this is a profound comfort. Jake gives us permission to see our own lives as dreamlike, to look at our struggles and imagine new ways of moving through them, to look at our responsibilities and fuse them with play, to look at our relationship and see them as flexible, ever-changing, ever-living. His philosophy tells us that dreaming is not only for sleep, it is for every moment of our lives, reminding us that reality is more open, more playful, more mysterious than we might believe. And so Jake stands not only as the easygoing sage, but as the dreamer of Ooo, showing us that to live well is to live as if dreaming fluid, playful, and unafraid of the impossible. To understand Jake as the dreamer of Ooo, we must look not only at his powers or his humor, but at the way he perceives reality itself. He does not see the world as rigid or unchangeable. He sees it as a canvas, open to interpretation, to stretching, to reshaping. This dreamer's vision is what allows him to remain so calm in moments that terrify others. Where some see disaster, Jake sees possibility. Where some see an end, he sees another bend in the path. His ability to view reality through the lens of imagination makes him more than a companion. It makes him a guide. This dreamlike philosophy also explains why Jake never seems consumed by fear. Fear thrives on the idea that reality is fixed, that danger or loss is inevitable. Jake, however, lives as though the world is flexible. If something breaks, he imagines it whole again. If a path is blocked, he stretches into a new shape to move past it. His imagination dissolves the walls that fear builds. In this way, Jake teaches us that dreaming is a kind of courage, not the loud courage of defiance, but the quiet courage of believing that things can always change. His relationship with cosmic beings strengthens this vision. When Jake enters spaces where time folds in on itself or where reality twists in unfamiliar ways, he does not panic. He treats these dreamlike realms with the same ease he treats an afternoon nap. This comfort reveals a deeper truth. Jake is already aligned with the nature of dreams. Rules bend, and meaning is fluid. He belongs to the dreamlike dimension of Ooo as naturally as he belongs to its forests and hills. This is why his friendship with Prismo feels so natural. Prismo, who exists only as long as another sleeps, embodies the essence of dreaming. And Jake, though not born of such a state, resonates with it. Their connection feels like recognition. In a sense, Jake's entire existence mirrors Prismo's transient, flexible, full of possibility. The difference is that Jake brings this dreamlike essence into the waking world, showing that dreaming is not confined to sleep, but woven into the fabric of daily life. Even Jake's role in storytelling reflects his dreamer's philosophy. Throughout Adventure Time, Jake often provides commentary, jokes, or songs that reshape how others experience the moment. These are not idle distractions. They are reimagining, ways of softening the edges of reality by infusing it with imagination. He takes what is ordinary and makes it extraordinary, turning even a walk through the woods into a playful adventure. In this sense, Jake is not just living the story, he's dreaming it into being. His dreamer's vision also influences how he treats conflict. Many characters in Ooo face battles with a sense of grim determination, believing that victory depends on force alone. Jake, however, often approaches conflict as though it is part of a dream, malleable, open to creative solutions. He stretches into shields, wraps around enemies, or turns into unexpected shapes to confuse and disarm. His dreamlike approach reframes conflict itself, suggesting that imagination can be as powerful as strength. This dreaming quality even colors Jake's relationship with impermanence. Dreams, after all, are fleeting. They dissolve upon waking, yet they leave impressions that linger. Jake accepts his own life in the same way. He does not resist its temporary nature, but embraces it, finding comfort in knowing that, like a dream, his life will leave traces of warmth and wisdom even after it fades. His acceptance of impermanence and his identity as a dreamer are two threads of the same philosophy, woven together seamlessly. For Finn, Jake's dreamer's heart is transformative. Finn, driven by duty and shaped by the need to be a hero, sometimes forgets that the world can be playful. Jake reminds him again and again that imagination is not a luxury, but a necessity. Finn's growth into a balanced, hopeful hero owes much to Jake's dreamlike perspective. Without it, Finn might have been consumed by the weight of responsibility. With it, he learns to see the world as more than battles and burdens. And for us, Jake's philosophy as the dreamer of Ooo offers a soft invitation. It tells us that life does not need to be so rigid, so fixed in shape. We too can dream while awake. We can see new paths where none seem to exist. We can laugh at seriousness, soften fear with imagination, and treat reality as a canvas rather than a cage. Jake's dreamlike way of living is not only for Ooo, it is for all of us, here in the quiet hours of the night. As we come to the end of Jake's philosophy, his dreamlike essence leaves us with one final teaching, that life itself is not something to solve, but something to imagine. Jake does not move through Ooo as if it were a puzzle with one correct answer. He moves as though it were a dream to be explored, full of shifting shapes, hidden paths, and moments of wonder. His ease, his laughter, his acceptance of change, all of these come from the heart of a dreamer who understands that reality is fluid and that beauty lies not in control, but in imagination. What makes Jake's role so profound is that he never claims to be wise. He does not sit on throne or carve laws into stone. He naps, he sings, he stretches, and yet through these simple acts, he teaches more than most rulers or sages ever could. His philosophy is lived, not declared, and in its gentleness lies its power. By treating life like a dream, Jake reveals that the deepest truths can be found in ease and laughter, in letting go. The dreamer's vision also ties Jake to the larger mythos of adventure time. Ooo is a place born from apocalypse, scarred by war, and haunted by powers that stretch beyond comprehension. Yet within this chaos exists Jake, a dog with a soft smile and a stretchy body, embodying the possibility that imagination itself is a form of survival. In a world cracked by serious and struggle, Jake's dreamer's heart keeps balance. He does not deny the darkness, but he refuses to let it consume him. Instead, he dreams light into being, weaving play into fear, love into impermanence, and freedom into responsibility. Even Jake's final moments carry this dreamlike quality. When he accepts his own passing, he does so with the same ease he showed in life. It is as though he is simply waking from one dream and stepping into another. For Finn and for us, this is heartbreaking, but it is also comforting. Jake leaves behind a reminder that life itself is a dream, brief and beautiful, and that endings are not failures, but transitions into something new. His dreamer's heart teaches us that nothing is truly lost. Everything changes shape. Everything flows onward. As we reflect on his life, we see that Jake's philosophy is a circle. Freedom leading to responsibility, responsibility balanced by play, play softened by impermanence, impermanence held by love, and love carried into dreaming. Each part flows into the next, forming a whole that feels complete and gentle. Jake is not a philosopher in the traditional sense, but his life embodies a philosophy as rich and timeless as any ancient teaching. For those of us listening in the dark, his lessons offer a deep sense of peace. We are reminded that we too can live with freedom, balance responsibility with play, accept impermanence, love without control, and dream while awake. We are reminded that life does not need to be rushed or forced. It can be stretched, shaped, and softened, lived as lightly as Jake lived his own. So as this night deepens and our thoughts begin to blur into dreams of their own, let Jake's philosophy linger with us. Let his laughter echo softly in our minds, not as noise, but as comfort. Let his dreamlike way of living remind us that imagination is always near, ready to color even the most ordinary days. And let his gentle acceptance remind us that love, freedom, and dreaming are not separate things, but threads of the same golden weave. Jake the dog, the easygoing sage, the philosopher of freedom, the master of balance, the comforter in impermanence, the teacher of love, and the dreamer of Ooo, leaves us with a gift. The knowledge that life is lighter when lived with joy, deeper when lived with love, and brighter when lived as though dreaming. Good night.